My sister announced her pregnancy in the middle of my wedding to steal the attention. But I discovered who the father of her child is. If you've ever had a family member who simply can't stand not being the center of attention, you'll understand what I'm feeling right now. I always knew my sister Anna had that unhealthy need to be the focus of all family gatherings, but what she did at my wedding was a betrayal I wouldn't have imagined even in my worst nightmares. I'm going to tell this from the beginning because I need to get it out of my system. I need to put it into words to try to understand at what point everything went wrong. I got married a month ago. It was an event that I planned with a lot of love, and with the intention of it being a special day not only for me, but for my husband and for the people around us. We put effort into every detail, from the decoration to the food. Everything was designed to make that day unforgettable, and it was. But not for the reasons I expected. Anna has always had a strange relationship with attention. It doesn't matter the event, if there are people gathered and someone else is shining, she has to do something to make everyone look at her. And of course, my wedding couldn't be the exception. Everything was going well until the reception. The ceremony had been beautiful, we had already danced our first dance, and we were enjoying the moment when the toast arrived. My husband was finishing a beautiful speech about our love, people were excited, and I felt on top of the world until Anna decided that couldn't continue. Just as my husband raised his glass for the toast, Anna got up from her seat and hit her glass with a spoon, calling everyone's attention. At first I thought she was going to congratulate me or say some nice words, but no, of course not. With a big smile, she put a hand on her belly and dropped the bomb. Before we continue with this beautiful celebration, I have something very important to share with all of you. I'm pregnant. The silence in the room lasted half a second before applause erupted. My mother started crying with emotion, my aunts came over to hug her, and everyone was surrounding her while I just sat there watching how, in a matter of seconds, my wedding stopped being my wedding to become the big news of Anna's pregnancy. My husband squeezed my hand under the table, noticing that I was about to lose my composure. She stole my moment, turned the most important day of my life into her personal stage to make her big announcement. The worst thing is that she didn't even seem to realize what she had done. She looked radiant, happy, as if she had achieved something incredible, while I felt invisible. And here comes the part that really put me on alert. Nobody asked about the father. Nobody, not even a comment about it, which is strange because every time there is a pregnancy in the family, the first thing the aunts do is ask for details about the relationship. But this time, nothing. At that moment I didn't give it much importance because I was too busy trying to control my urge to yell at her. But after the wedding, when the comments started to emerge, I began to notice something strange in the way they talked about her pregnancy. One of my aunts said something that gave me goosebumps. Look, I don't want to say anything because it's not my place, but there are things that simply aren't right. When I asked her what she meant by that, she simply remained silent and changed the subject. It didn't let me sleep all night. And here's where the real madness begins. I couldn't stay with the doubt, so I started asking. First I tried with my mother, but her answer was a simple, let her say when she wants, which confirmed that she already knew. I went to my Aunt Sandra, the one who dropped that suspicious comment at the wedding. I insisted until, after a lot of beating around the bush, she told me with an expression that looked more like disgust than shame. Do you really want to know? Because once you know, there's no going back. I remained silent. I didn't know if I wanted to know, but at that point I couldn't not know. Sandra sighed, looked around as if she was about to release a state secret, and told me in a low voice, "It's Diego. Diego. My cousin. My cousin, the guy we grew up with, the one who went to family gatherings with his good boy smile and who always seemed so normal. The one who has our same blood." I don't know how I reacted at that moment because everything was a whirlwind. I just remember leaving my aunt's house automatically, feeling like my brain was trying to process the impossible. I don't know what to do with this information. I don't know how Anna can even look at herself in the mirror. I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to make her tell me to my face. I'm going to confront her. The father of her child is my cousin. Update 1. A couple of days have passed since I discovered the truth, but I still can't fully process it. Every time I close my eyes, my Aunt Sandra's words resonate in my head. It's Diego. I don't know what worries me more, the fact that Anna decided to have a child with our cousin, or that she doesn't seem to care what that means for our family. And the worst thing is that while I was trying to digest everything, She continued with her life as if nothing happened. I didn't last long before confronting her. I couldn't. I felt my stomach twist every time I thought about the possibility of her getting away with it without even giving an explanation. So I decided to confront her. I went to her house unannounced because I knew that if I told her I wanted to talk to her, she would prepare some lie or cheap excuse. When she opened the door and saw me standing there, her expression changed for a second. She seemed nervous. "What's up?" she asked in a tone too casual for the gravity of the situation. "You know what's up, Anna," I replied, unwilling to beat around the bush. She looked at me silently, crossing her arms as if waiting for me to say something else. I had no intention of giving it to her so easily. I just watched her, waiting for her to have the courage to admit it. After a few uncomfortable seconds, she let out a sigh and rolled her eyes. "Let me guess, they already told you who the dad is," she said in a tired tone, as if she was sick of hearing the same question. "Not only did they tell me, I confirmed it," I replied, feeling the anger rise in my chest. "What the hell were you thinking, Anna?" Instead of looking ashamed or even worried about the situation, she smiled an arrogant smile, as if what I had just told her was meaningless gossip. "It's not a big deal. Diego and I love each other," she said as if that justified absolutely everything. That's when I felt my blood boil. "It's not a big deal?" My voice rose without me being able to help it. "Anna, he's our cousin. Our cousin. Do you have any idea what you did?" "And what?" she snapped, shrugging. "We're not the first cousins to be together. This is normal in some cultures. We're not in another culture, Anna. We're in our family. Have you thought about how this affects everyone? How it makes us look? What it will mean for your child?" She was silent for a moment. I thought that maybe she was finally understanding the gravity of the situation, but no. She simply changed tactics. "This has nothing to do with you," she said coldly. "It's not your life. It's not your problem." "Oh no." I crossed my arms. "Because the last time I checked, you made this my problem when you decided to ruin my wedding to announce it." That was the first time I noticed a small flicker of discomfort on her face. Perhaps because until now, everyone had been too busy processing the scandal of the pregnancy to remind her how selfish she had been. "That had nothing to do with this," she murmured, avoiding my gaze. "Of course it did. You knew this news would cause an impact, and instead of dealing with it privately, you chose my wedding as your stage." Anna pursed her lips and remained silent. I don't know if it was because she realized she didn't have a good answer or simply because she didn't care. But the next thing she said made it clear that she had no intention of repenting. "Anyway, it doesn't matter what you think. Diego and I are going to continue with this, and if you or Mom don't like it, it's your problem." That's when I understood that she wasn't going to change her mind, that in her head she hadn't done anything wrong, that no matter how many times I explained how disgusting her decision was, she would still be convinced that she had the right to do whatever she wanted without facing consequences. I left her house with a feeling of disgust and anger that I couldn't control. But the worst hadn't arrived yet. As soon as I got home, my mother was waiting in the living room. She didn't even ask me what had happened. She already knew. "So it's true," she said quietly without even looking at me. I nodded. There was nothing more to say. My mother closed her eyes and sighed deeply. For a moment I thought she was going to collapse, but when she opened them again, her expression was pure fury. "I'm not going to support her," she said with a firmness I had never heard before. I remained silent, surprised. "What?" "I'm not going to support her in this," she repeated. "She has committed a sin, and I'm not going to be a part of it." I had never seen my mother react like this. She had always been the kind of person who defended her children no matter what they did. The typical mother who believed that any mistake could be corrected with love. But this time it was noticeable that she had reached her limit. "Your sister made a decision," she continued, "and now let her face the consequences. If she thought Mom was going to be there to hold her hand and pamper her like she always had, she was very wrong. And the best part is that the family was already beginning to divide. The gossiping aunts who previously pretended they didn't know anything now had divided opinions. Some said that love is love and that we shouldn't judge them. Others were scandalized and assured that this was a disgrace for the family, but the vast majority simply washed their hands of the matter. I, for my part, no longer felt anything for Anna.
No anger, no sadness, no disappointment.
Just indifference. She made her decision, now let her live with it. Update 2. It's been a couple of weeks since my last update, and although I thought the situation with Ana and Diego couldn't get any worse, it turns out I was wrong. Very wrong. I don't know if you've ever seen a story crumble in real time, but that's exactly what's happening in my family right now. And the best part is that Ana, the same one who ruined my wedding with her big announcement and who told me to my face that this had nothing to do with me, now wants help. But let's back up a bit. After my mother made it clear that she wouldn't support her, Ana remained confident. I suppose that in her head she thought that Diego was going to be there for her, that together they would face the family, that eventually everyone would accept their relationship, and that her life would be the tragic but romantic love story that she had probably already put together in her head. But of course, Ana is not the type of person who thinks about the consequences of her actions. So, as expected, things didn't turn out the way she expected. It all started with small details. Diego began to distance himself. He didn't answer messages as quickly as before. He made excuses not to see her. And when they went to a family gathering, it was noticeable that he was uncomfortable. It wasn't hard to notice that something was wrong because the guy went from being supposedly in love and committed to the situation to not even being able to hold his gaze when someone asked him about the baby. First, Ana tried to ignore it. She convinced herself that it was just stress, that he was overwhelmed by the family's reaction, and that he needed time. But the excuses stopped working when Diego directly stopped answering her. At first it was hours without responding, then days, then he simply disappeared. Ana paniquet. She called him again and again, sent him messages that he clearly didn't even read. She tried to look for him at his house, but my uncles told her he wasn't there. At that point I already knew something very strange was going on, so I decided to ask directly. I went to my uncle's house, and after a couple of evasive answers, my aunt burst into tears. "Diego left?" she said, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her sweater. "What? How can he leave?" I asked, unable to believe it. "I don't know exactly when, but a week ago he told us that he couldn't take it anymore, that he wasn't ready for this, and then he just disappeared." The floor moved beneath my feet. Diego hadn't just stopped talking to Ana, he had left. My uncles tried to justify it by saying he was overwhelmed, that the family had put too much pressure on him, that he needed time to think. But honestly, that seemed like a cheap excuse to me. Diego knew perfectly well what he was doing when he got involved with Ana. He knew this was going to have consequences, and instead of assuming them like an adult, he decided to run away like a coward. When I told Ana what had happened, she went into absolute denial. "It's impossible. He wouldn't leave without telling me anything," she insisted with tears in her eyes. "Well, he did," I replied without any compassion. "What did you expect, Ana?" "I expected him not to be a damn coward." That's when she broke. She started crying. I don't know if it was from anger or sadness, but for the first time in a long time Ana wasn't in control. And I honestly didn't feel sorry for her. She tried to call my mom, tried to ask her for help, but Mom was firm. "I warned you," she told her. "I'm not going to be a part of this." Ana begged her, told her that she was alone, that she didn't know what to do, that she couldn't raise a child alone, but my mother just shook her head. "When you decided to announce this in the middle of your sister's wedding, you were sure that you didn't need anyone. Now face it." Ana's desperation grew to the point that she even tried to talk to the aunts who had previously defended her. Yes, the same ones who at first said that love is love and that there was nothing wrong with what she was doing. But curiously, they all started to disappear when they realized that Diego had abandoned her. Ana went to the house of our Aunt Marta, who was one of those who had supported her the most at the beginning. She asked to stay with her, at least until she could sort out her life. And guess what? Our aunt told her no. "I can't take care of this, Ana. I'm sorry, but it's your problem." Just like that, they abandoned her. Just like that. She went from being a brave woman fighting for her tragic love to being simply a pregnant and alone woman who no longer suited anyone. And for the first time in her entire life, Ana had no one to rescue her. Now she is alone, without support, without the fairy tale she invented in her head, and with a child on the way that she will have to raise without the man with whom, according to her, she was going to build a family. Ana's problem is that she always thought she could do whatever she wanted without consequences, that she could manipulate people, steal attention whenever she felt like it, and that the whole world would always revolve around her. But this time no one is saving her. And the best part is that she deserves it. Update 3. It's been a couple of weeks since Diego disappeared, and Ana continues her free fall. You can see it on her face, in the way she speaks, in the way that, for the first time in her life, she doesn't have a quick answer, an excuse, or some manipulation ready to get away with it. She's learning what it really means to be alone. But she hasn't hit bottom yet. After the aunts who previously supported her turned their backs on her, and my mom made it clear that she wasn't going to help her, Ana was adrift. She stayed in her apartment, but she wasn't the same self-assured Ana who looked at me arrogantly the day I confronted her. Now she was a mess. And the most ironic thing is that, for the first time, she couldn't do what she did best: manipulate people into feeling sorry for her. This time no one was falling for her game. But she still had one last hope, or so she thought. Ana remained convinced that Diego was going to return. In her head, all this was a momentary reaction, a whim, something that would eventually be resolved, because in her mind, Diego was the great love of her life, and a man who supposedly loved her couldn't simply abandon her like this. She had no idea how wrong she was. I, for my part, had already stopped getting involved in the drama. The only thing I did was watch from afar while Ana ran into the wall again and again. But then one day my Aunt Martha called me. I was surprised because since everything exploded, the family had been avoiding talking directly about the subject. Nobody wanted to take sides. Everyone pretended they didn't know what was happening. But when I answered, her voice sounded worried. "We need to talk." I didn't like the tone she used. It was the tone the aunts used when they were about to drop a bomb. And I wasn't wrong. Diego left the country. It took me a moment to process what I had just heard. What? He went to Spain. The impact left me speechless. How do you know? His mother told me. She didn't want anyone to know. But Diego confessed to her that he didn't want to deal with any of this anymore. He got a flight and left. He has no plans to return. I had to sit down. This couldn't be happening. And what does he want now? He says he regrets it, that he left because he was scared, but that he's always loved her and that now he wants to take care of the baby. It took me a few seconds to process what I had just heard. You're kidding me. I wish I were joking. I ran a hand over my face, trying to understand what kind of madness was happening. Diego had not only run away like a coward, but now he was back with the story that he had always loved her. And the family? What do they say? That it's a disgrace. Mom already said she's not going to allow it. My mom doesn't even want to hear her name. But you know what Ana is like. And yes, I knew what Ana was like. Of course, when Diego showed up at her door crying and saying he was sorry, she welcomed him with open arms. It didn't take me long to confirm it. That same afternoon, I went to my Aunt Esther's house, and the first thing I saw when I entered was Ana sitting on the sofa with Diego next to her, holding her hand as if nothing had happened. Ana was smiling. Smiling as if the last few months hadn't existed, as if she hadn't gone through humiliation, despair, abandonment, as if everything had been a bad dream she had just woken up from. I stood at the door, feeling a mix of disbelief and fury. Seriously? I asked coldly. Ana looked up, and her expression changed for a moment. Diego, on the other hand, held my gaze without any shame. I know it seems crazy, he began to say in a calm voice, but I want to do it right. Do it right. I laughed humorlessly. You left. You left Ana alone, pregnant, without money, without support. And now you come back with a cheap speech that you love her and you want to be responsible. I left because I was scared. I didn't know how to handle it, but I never stopped thinking about her, he said with a seriousness that almost made me want to hit him. I got a good job in Spain, saved up, and came back because I want to do things right. I want to be with Ana. I want to be a father to our child. I looked at Ana, waiting for her to say something, to show some dignity, to at least make a comment about what she had suffered because of his abandonment, but no. She just looked at him as if he were her salvation. I love him, she whispered. And I want us to be together. I couldn't believe it. Ana, he left you alone. He destroyed you. But he came back, she said as if that were enough. I remained silent, feeling like I was wasting my time. There was no point arguing with her. No matter what I said, no matter what Diego did, Ana was always going to choose what suited her best at the time. The family is not going to accept you, I warned her. Mom doesn't want to know anything about this. We don't care, Diego intervened. We're going to start over far from here. And there I understood. You want to take her with you? Diego nodded. Ana and I are going to move in together somewhere else where nobody judges us. Ana looked down as if waiting for my reaction. Maybe she wanted me to try to stop her, to beg her to stay, to convince her not to make another mistake. But I didn't. I just took a step back and let out a sigh. Good luck, Ana. Ana seemed surprised. That's all. What else do you want me to say? I shrugged. You made your choice, and now you're making another one. I turned around and left the house without looking back. That was the last time I saw Ana. I know she left with Diego a few days later. No one in the family knows exactly where. We only know that they left and haven't tried to contact us. For my mom, for my uncles, and for most of the family, Ana no longer exists. And I honestly don't miss her. Maybe someday she'll come back. Maybe someday when Diego disappoints her again, because we all know he will, she'll try to return, try to seek support in the family she left behind. But I won't be here for her. Not this time. Not ever again.